This episode is brought to you by Dogfish Head Craft Brewery. The Grateful Dead and Dogfish Head have gotten the band back together with the release of Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale, a light-bodied pale ale brewed with sustainable Kernza grains, granola, and heaps of good karma for a refreshing brew that's music to your taste buds. Available nationwide. Visit dogfish.com to find Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale in your neck of the woods. Dogfish Head Craft Brewery is located in Milton, Delaware. Please drink responsibly.
En momentos intensos necesitas una hidratación que esté a tu nivel. Hidrátate con Liquid IV, científicamente diseñada para reponer rápidamente electrolitos y líquidos perdidos durante tu ejercicio. Hidrata tu ejercicio favorito con Liquid IV, formulada con 3 veces la cantidad de electrolitos que la bebida deportiva líder del mercado, más 8 vitaminas y nutrientes. También disponible sin azúcar. Abre, vierte, vive más. Conoce más en liquidiv.com.
Hello and welcome to episode 231 of Something About the Beatles podcast. It has been a few weeks since the last show, and I apologize for that. It's not like we're doing seasons here. I don't get that. I actually do not get that whole thing with podcasts, seasons. It sounds a bit pretentious to me. I just shove out the shows as quickly as I can turn them around. And we don't do seasons. So I try to get out at least a couple a month, sometimes 3. If there's a 2-parter, which this one will be. But anyway, it's for no lack of labor since the last show in terms of recording new shows and planning new shows and also other stuff going on. And without getting too lengthy about this has been something that I've been doing out of the sheer love for a long time, but I also recognize that with the amount of time I'm putting into it, I should be able to set it more properly up to fulfill its potential. And I've got a loyal listenership now, but I think there's plenty of people out there that still are Beatle fans and don't know about the show. And so to expand the reach takes some energy and labor and time. And to that end, I've been looking to see what I can do to bring in some kind of support for the show in terms of sponsorships. And that's what I've been working on. And so you may see that happen in the not too distant future. But at the same time, this is kind of a big deal. SAPI got nominated for a Angel grant that I will be applying for to get some funding into the show to do the things that, as a basically one-man operation, it'd be nice to have some help with certain things that would get the shows flowing out a lot quicker and other things in terms of promotion that can be done, starting with a better website, things like that. So that's what I'm looking to do with this, because I do, through the support you guys have given the show through the years and the kind remarks you guys take the time to send my way, I recognize that there is an audience for what I'm doing and a loyal listenership, and I think you guys should be better served than you are by this very shoestring operation, and that takes some funding to make happen. So I'm trying to get that underway so that this can be run more regularly. Still not going to go to seasons yet, but something where the flow of shows will be done on schedule and as tightly and professionally done as I can possibly manage. And other things to flow through that, including video casts and other media going forward. So you've got that to look forward to. And to that end, I'm hoping that you guys can help me out a bit with this. On the show's site, somethingaboutthebeatles.com, and in some of the posts I'll be putting up, there is a survey I would love for you loyal listeners to fill out. It's very quick, just asking some questions, because in my doing the research, people that are looking to find shows to sponsor do look for some stats on, well, who are your listeners? And I know you guys pretty well just through the exchanges and feedback we've had through the years, but they need something a little more solid and less anecdotal. So if you guys could kindly start filling out the survey that I'm posting, it would take you half a minute to do. The first 50 people to do that, I will be sending out Something About the Beatles bumper magnets to. It's a start. There'll be other things we'll be giving away. We're looking to give away and have some actual contests go out and give away things of value like, I don't know, subscriptions to Beatle publications, and maybe work our way up to instruments or trips or all kinds of stuff. So we want to see that happen to get more engagement going and more tangible stuff for you guys to get out of listening to the show besides enjoying it, hopefully. So returning to show for the first time since last year, Gary Wenstrup, Beatle lecturer and a friend of the show, a friend of mine. And we're continuing our series, Beatles Olympiad. This conversation will be split into two parts because we got going on a roll. But it was a fun conversation, I have to say. And our sort of grading the next batch of releases, which for our purposes will be 1965. But we also go off the reservation a bit toward the end as well, just to keep it interesting for ourselves and hopefully for you too. So without any further belaboring this, I've laid a lot on you just now. Good things for the show. Good things for past endeavors and future endeavors. Just get you guys further engaged for more good stuff to come your way. If you could help with the survey, that'd be great. In the meantime, think about that and sit back and enjoy Gary and I proceeding with Help. So we commence Beatles Olympiad 2, where we left off, which was starting with their fifth album, released in the summer of 1965, Help. Got two albums out of them that year, one being a soundtrack, more or less. It certainly was in the States, in Capitol. And then the year ended with a bang with Rubber Soul, two versions of that. And then in the next year, we got only one new album of material out of them, Revolver. But in the States, it being the States, we got another one of those Capitol-only issues, which I think we will talk about today. Because I don't know if we're going to talk about oldies, which came out in Parlophone the end of 66 while they're working on Strawberry Fields, but we'll see what we feel like. But for this show, I think we can talk about the UK Help, both Rubber Souls, and Yesterday and Today. So then, have you got a ranking with the UK Help, which of course, side one being all the songs that Capitol issued that were actually seen in the film, alongside that mix of classical and Indian hodgepodge stuff by Ken Thorne in the States, which I have to say, what are your thoughts on the Help album? Does it make you nostalgic, the Capitol version?
No. I think I'm so used to now the English version that's just a distant memory.
So you haven't revisited it since the CD age?
That's correct.
Oh, interesting.
How about you? It sounds like you have.
Well, it's in my DNA at this point. It was one of the first handful of albums I got to hear. I'm not talking about 1965. I'm talking about when my fandom began. And I don't know if I've said this on the show before, but I'm going to say it now just to establish the context. When I got into the Beatles, as I've said many times, it was the red and blue albums that were my gateway. That's what got me in. Now, my mother had been an employee of Ampex since the mid-late 60s. And my dad and mom both were big, huge music consumers. My dad skewed toward classical and jazz and folk and world music. We were hearing Ravi Shankar in the house before probably George Harrison did.
Wow.
For real. So that was his baby. My mom tended to be a little more pop, but it was the law if you were a mother in the 1960s to be into Engelbert and Tom Jones. And so that was definitely a thing. But as an employee of Ampex, they would have the employee sales. And she would buy, alongside my dad, they'd go down there when they had the sales, tons of reel-to-reel tape, which they must have been staggeringly cheap to the employees. I wish to God that we'd held on to that stuff because it's all scattered to the winds. I don't know what happened to it. But we had a mega library of reel-to-reel tape that they were buying indiscriminately. And I have to tell you that when I came of age to where I could start playing my own music from the holdings in the house, a lot of that library, I would say 3/4 of it, was still in the shrink wrap. And lo and behold, they had a bunch of Beatles stuff that never got listened to, that was sitting there reel to reel. I know there's a lot of people that are collectors that are going to be listening to me, hearing me say these words that are like, oh my God, you had that in the 70s and it was non-opened, because that stuff goes for big bucks now. And I wish to hell I knew what happened to it. It just got scattered to the winds. But anyway, from memory, I can tell you what we owned. It wasn't complete. It was just probably the circumstance of what they were selling that day. A number of solo Beatle stuff on Apple, early 70s. We had Buku's and Sentimental Journey. both unopened. We had Ram and McCartney and Wildlife. We had All Things Must Pass. We didn't have any Lennon. I don't know why that would have been. Maybe it just got snapped up quickly. I don't know. And for Beatles on Apple, we had Hey Jude, which was among one of my earliest listening experiences. Let It Be, didn't have Abbey Road, had half the White Album because it was split into two reels. We had the second half, which was a mystery album to me because it said Volume 2 on it. And I thought the Beatles put out an album called Volume 2. I had no idea what it was till much later. It's like, what is this? This is cool. Because they look sort of, it was that high contrast image of the White Album portraits split into four, kind of like Let It Be. And I could tell they looked very similar as they do on Let It Be, with George with the mustache and Ringo with the mustache, John clean shaved as he is in Let It Be and the White Album. And Paul's got the 5 o'clock shadow in the White Album portrait. And in Let It Be, he's got the full beard. But the White Album portrait looked like a full beard because it was high contrast. So I didn't know what it was, but I just loved the music. Then we had a bunch of the Capitol stuff. Didn't have Pepper, but we had Magical Mystery Tour, had Rubber Soul, had Yesterday and Today, had Help, had Beatles 65, didn't have Something New or Second Album or Meet the Beatles. So that might have been it. So that handful of Capitol albums, before I had vinyl, other than the Red and Blue album, those were my first Beatle experiences as individual albums. So it's a long way of saying that Help, every note of that album, start to finish, is ingrained in my DNA, including the fake James Bond theme that opens it in front of Help. To me, they're like inseparable, and it always sounds weird to me to hear Help without that.
Yeah.
All these years later. I don't know why. But I could still hear the skips. Do I like it with it?
Yeah.
I know I shouldn't. I know that's wrong. I know it's an abomination, but I don't object to hearing it.
I hear it every now and then. I get a kick out of it.
Right. I think Terry plays it on her show on Breakfast with the Beatles, right?
Yeah, it doesn't offend me.
Right. And I know every Brit out there is seething right now, but I'm sorry. How many millions of Americans can be wrong? I don't know. So I have a fondness for that album. And mostly because it's not the kind of thing that years later as a grown-up, I sat down and played for pleasure, because I don't know that I did really other than a handful of times. So most of my experience comes as a kid in the 70s, listening to it start to finish. And so it brings me back to that era of my life. So I've got that fondness. And I would say the same thing of Yesterday and Today and some of the other albums that I did start to listen to on vinyl, like Beatles' second album. I will defend that, because if you view the American albums as compilations and not as substitutes for what the Beatles programmed and crafted, they're just look at them as compilations. And nobody hates on the Beatles beat, do they? Or what's that one German one, World's Best? There were a number of compilations I picked up because the covers were cool along the way. Por Siempre Beatles. You don't see the abuse and hate that gets piled on the Capitol releases. And maybe if it was somebody that was less hateable than Dave Dexter that was putting him together, maybe they would be cut a little slack. But he's a guy that is a villain in Beatle history. Take away the echo and what he did to the Capitol releases aside. His piece in Billboard after John was killed has got him the everlasting enmity of all kinds of Beatle fans, because, yeah, we're sad he's dead, but he was kind of a dick. That was pretty much the gist of his article.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of the second album because I love the Hard Day's Night music and the vibe.
In the Beatles' second album?
Yeah, right? It's got a lot of stuff that was holdover or pieces from, does it not?
No.
From Hard Day's Night? No.
It's got Roll Over Beethoven, Thank You Girl, You Really Got a Hold on Me. So it's more with the Beatles. Plus, there was the Long Tall Sally EP that had come out in England. Yeah. But we jumped the gun. So we had Long Tall Sally. We had I Call Your Name.
Right.
I think they saved Matchbox and Slow Down for Something New later on that summer in 64.
I'm confusing second album with Something New.
There you go.
I just haven't listened to them since the 80s. I had them as a kid.
On vinyl.
On vinyl, yeah. And the one that offended me, I think it was Something New, but now, oh God, you're going to correct me, was the German version of She Loves You and I Want to Hold Your Hand. Where did those end up?
So She Loves You was on the Swan single, but Come Give Merdine a Hand was the finale to Something New. We need one more track. What do we have in our pocket?
So on Something New, there's only one.
Yeah. And it's got most of A Hard Day's Night except for A Hard Day's Night, because United Artists had that on their lock. But they were able to put in their And I Love Her and If I Fell. I'm Happy Just to Dance With You. Those are on there because Capitol had the rights to issue those as singles, which they did. Plus I'll Cry Instead.
Right.
And then Anytime at All, which is on the Hard Day's Night album. Things We Said Today.
Yeah. See, that's all something new, right?
That's all something new, yes.
Yeah, which is why I love that sound in that period. A funny anecdote to me, you were talking about your family.
Mm-hmm.
For my Christmas list one year, I did not have yet Something New by the Beatles. So I wrote that on my Christmas list. And so my mom goes into a record store for Something New by the Beatles. And I think maybe she came home with Yellow Submarine or something like that.
It's new.
Yeah, it's like, oh. Anyway.
We haven't gotten that, and that will show up on a future Olympiad. So I guess, as curious as I am right now about your take on the Yellow Submarine album, especially in that context, which was certainly a negative experience for you when you're expecting one thing and you get the bait and switch. But I will leave it to one sentence, which is, I don't have a problem with that album.
With Something New?
No, Yellow Submarine.
Oh, okay. Well, it's got 4 fresh Beatle tracks, so have at it, right?
But a lot of people bitch and moan about, that's not even a Beatle album. Half of it's George Martin's orchestra. That was a fine listening experience. I was totally down with that.
Okay.
And you're going to leave it at that?
I mean, I feel it's shortchanging a listener. I don't.
But that was Capitol's way of doing business.
Yeah.
But the Beatles did this themselves. They can't blame Capitol for this. That was how they got it out. They were going to put out the EP, as you know.
Yeah.
The 4 songs plus Across the Universe, which was orphaned at that point. I guess more is better than less in that instance.
There you go. It's the Get Back documentary all over again.
Right.
More is better than less.
Yeah, I'll take more. But to get back to Help now, if you want to lay on me your gold, silver, and bronze for that album.
Sure. So my bronze, and I think we sort of ping-pong back and forth, but my bronze is You've Got to Hide Your Love Away.
Mm-hmm.
My rationale for that. The vocal is so front and center. It's so right there.
It grabs you.
It grabs you. And it's unadorned. The vocal, it's weary. It's defeated. There's a little gravel in his voice. So that grabs me immediately. And then you get the ultimate grab when he does the hey. Mm-hmm. It's such an unexpected jolt in the song. So it's such simple songwriting hooks, maybe. I don't know if that's the right word. It's such a simple hook, but it's so captivating.
Mm-hmm.
It's really the vocal that makes that song so compelling for me.
Did you get a sense when you were hearing it and getting into it? Now, you've described all the sonic attributes that would have engaged you, that would have been the immediate perception you're forming of the song. Did you also, or maybe might it have taken later, did you get a sense, you mentioned the weariness in the vocal, that he had a personal engagement in what he was singing, or was it just another ditty like, I've got a tune to write for this album? Did you see something like an extra layer of depth to it?
I'm reflecting on that. I felt it was emotional, that there was a reality to it, but as a somewhat knowledgeable person about the Beatles, I don't know that there was any reason it should have felt so real.
Right. And I'm not asking you to explain your theory, although plenty of people suggested it was based on Brian Epstein's life and his hidden love life. That's the theory, the same way Babies in Black is possibly, potentially about Astrid, because we're Beatle fans. We're always looking for deeper meanings and layers to stuff. But I do recall my perception of that song as being almost unsettlingly personal. And this is me as a kid getting into it, and I don't know why. It wasn't like I had the capability of really dissecting it, much less the Brian Epstein attachment to it. I just thought it had this layer of emotion the same way that If I Fell did. I don't know that that was informed by any personal experience. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But those, you almost felt like a voyeur listening to it.
And that's the beauty of John Lennon's voice, right?
100%.
It's just something that goes right to the center of you. Yes. It doesn't feel contrived. It feels real. Mm-hmm. And I think we're both kind of saying the same thing, that his vocal just hits us the same way.
How can I even try? I can never win. Hearing them, seeing them in the state I'm in. How could she say to me, love will find a way? Gather round, all you clowns, let me hear you say, hey, you've got to hide your love away. Hey, you've got to hide your love away.
And beyond that, because I think that is something that no matter where he went in the Beatles' career in terms of engagement or backing away and checking out or immersing himself in acid and then heroin, he always had the capability of delivering an engaged vocal that made you feel something from the beginning to the end.
I couldn't agree with you more. You know, as I listen back, as I did in the day, and I listen to it now, Double Fantasy, that is certainly not, in my opinion, John Lennon's strongest songwriting. Mm-hmm. But the vocals, his voice is just so captivating that it's hard for me to resist.
And I would say nowhere is that clearer than on, for me, you may have a different opinion, Watching the Wheels that comes to mind for, especially the end of that song where he goes up, I just had to let it go part. It just feels very heartfelt. I mean, I've got plenty of critiques of that album, God knows, but that's something I don't think you can fake. And I would further make the case, this is definitely a argument starter, I think his sweet spot as a songwriter in the entirety of the Beatles' career, from start to finish, was 1965. Beginning with Ticket to Ride, ending with what he does on Rubber Soul, In My Life, Girl, Nowhere Man, Norwegian Wood. I don't think he ever exceeded that. Obviously, there's plenty of good songs that came out of him later. I love the stuff he does on the White Album. But for consistently and sheer 5 out of 5, I don't think he ever exceeded that. And obviously, he was also more productive in the early years than he was later on. That the productivity certainly tapered off as Paul's rose. But it is unimaginable for somebody that young, with being pulled in a million different directions, flying off around the world to make a film and go on these world tours and craft 2 albums, full-length albums and singles besides. It's just unimaginable that you can crank out. I mean, nobody walking this earth today can do something on that level of quality. I don't think.
I totally agree with you. I would prefer the Hard Day's Night record, which is primarily his,
sure,
over 1965. But you're absolutely right. And I think that's one of the things that's sad to me, particularly in the wake of the Get Back documentary, that the spotlight really shines on Paul, as it should, because of that documentary, that sort of slice of time. Mm-hmm. And what I think tends to get lost are all the early Beatles songs that are incredible pieces of work with passion and with energy and with sweetness. Mm-hmm. And they kind of get lost because I feel like people are all focused on Abbey Road and the White Album, and all that stuff is just kind of brushed off as silly love songs.
Yeah, I think you're right to a certain extent. I would also argue for the musical invention of those early songs because they are so conscious and hardworking about not repeating themselves. You look at the songs he does, right now we're talking about the Help album, just what's on that album alone. Every song sounds different. Everything's got some other musical thing going on. You've got the Hide Your Love Away, obviously a bit of a Dylan pastiche, as he was the first to admit. It is and it isn't. It's still a John Lennon song sort of in that style, but there's some Beatle-ness about it that doubtless is informed by the 2 closest people he's working with at that moment, George Martin and Paul McCartney, that take it beyond the sort of rustic stuff that, I mean, by 65, obviously Dylan was going electric and he was moving streets ahead of where he'd started out. But to people that pointed that, or I'm a Loser as, yeah, that's John and his Dylan period, superficially perhaps, but there's still something more going on. It's not, there's plenty of copyists in the world, and I would not lump it in with that.
I wouldn't either, for no other reason than the brevity of those songs. Mm-hmm. Most Dylan compositions, you know, they're 4 or 5 minute songs. You know, the Beatles do all these pastiches, as you say, in like 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. And did Dylan ever have as a compelling vocal hook that, hey, and you've got to hide your love away? Did he ever have just a hook that compelling?
I think with Dylan's musical sensibility, and he started out as a rock and roll fan, like Little Richard and Buddy Holly, that sort of thing. before he really embraced the Woody Guthrie and all these American roots artist things. And then he went for that deliberately unpretty, rustic sound. So he was never playing the same sport, maybe not ever, as the Beatles in terms of building your sound around the vocals and particularly the harmonies, because he didn't have somebody to sing harmony with him. I think that is why so many wonderful compositions of his, and again, here's a guy barely out of college age crafting this timeless and unbelievably powerful, sophisticated music that, not for no reason, ended up being successfully covered by a lot of other artists that did have that prettiness or vocal sound, that blend. I mean, obviously, Exhibit A is the Byrds.
Sure.
Who return to that well over and over again. You can't quantify, well, my back page is better than Dylan's. It's different, that's all. I think the one instance, though, where Dylan points to a cover of his work and says, that guy found things in there that I didn't even realize were there, is Jimmy doing All Along the Watchtower.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then he started playing it that way live.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Or for one night he did anyway, and then he switched to a waltz approach the next.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So you got to Hide Your Love Away. If I had had a top 4 that would have made it there, it's just one that it is a deceptively compelling piece of work. Absolutely.
Before we move to your bronze, I do want to add it in a Beatle fans, and you certainly know, or I hope I'm correct. It's the first time that the Beatles use a non-Beatle instrument. It's the flute at the end of that. That's the one blemish in the song. I don't like the flute that's at the end. It's too pretty to my ears.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather something more subdued and moody. So maybe that's a saxophone. So that's the one bit of the song that's sort of just, oh, I wish we had that one to do over again.
Interesting. I'm not a big fan of flutes per se. And that one, I think, is so well blended, it doesn't bother me. And maybe you're thinking, well, Bob would use a harmonica here. We can't do that. So they were like, what's something else we can use? You're suggesting brass. That's interesting. This was still, well, it was the same year that produced Yesterday. So maybe they hadn't quite warmed to strings yet. I could hear it with some kind of like a solo violin piece exiting that coda. But as you recall, the folklore, George Martin had to talk Paul into accepting strings on Yesterday because he's immediately shutting it down. Mantovani, we're not doing that crap.
Yeah.
So it seemed like something that they sort of treaded the middle path. As far as an outside musician goes on a Beatle record, I've seen people point that out, that, this was the first time, completely forgetting Andy White.
Oh, well, that's like a trivia bar question or something.
Yes.
Go away. All right. Your bronze?
My bronze. A tough one because, again, maybe this is my hang up in being so steeped in the Capitol half a soundtrack version. I think of the Help album as the songs that made it to the movie. And as enjoyable as some of the other songs are inside too. And I really love Dizzy Miss Lizzy, for example. That's one I don't think is very highly rated, but I enjoy the hell of that performance. I think it's tremendous, and it's the sound of them having a blast well past their club years. But I never fully warmed to it hanging together as an album side. It almost sounds like some kind of random compilation, like they just shoved a bunch of songs onto one side that don't really hang together well like other albums that they did, even the UK ones. And that just might be my misperception. Well, when we get to Rubber Soul, we can talk about that. So I like the individual songs, but had they not split it the way they did, we got to have the film songs on side one, like they did with Hard Day's Night.
Right.
Chris Thomas said on my show, the producer, that sometimes the difference between a good album and a great album is the sequencing. And maybe if they'd mixed up the side 2 songs with the side 1 songs, it might have made a more compelling listening experience, but they had an absolute line that they were not going to cross, and so they did it the way they did it. I never thought side 2 hung together as well as it might have, despite the quality of a lot of the songs on it. So therefore, this is just me making the point that side 1 was always stronger to me. For my bronze, I'm choosing Ticket to Ride, and part of it is maybe on another day or point in my life where it wasn't so over-familiar. It's still, I think, an incredibly advanced piece of songwriting and arranging. If you want to call it heavy metal, as John did, that's your issue. I think it's a complete misunderstanding what heavy metal was, but it was them going for something heavy in the guitar sound. And I never understood his remark until Hollywood Bowl came out, which has got a different sound to it completely. And then I get the whole booming bottom to that, and it's more droning than I ever really recognized because my ears were drawn to the top heavy parts, the riff and the vocal and the harmonies back when I first heard the song. So it's got a unique construction to it that I find very compelling. And the vocals are great. Again, you have John with that emotional investment of what he's singing about, that sort of tear in his voice, even though it's an upbeat, poppy song. I think I'm going to be sad, girl's going away, I don't know what I did, that kind of thing, almost like a Yesterday theme. She's leaving, as you said, that living with me, all that sort of lament that I've ruined this relationship. So he's got that going on, even though he's singing all cheery and upbeat. And those great harmonies from Paul, the great lick that runs through the whole thing. It's great. Paul playing those little leads at the end of each verse. Ringo's drum performance. It's a magnificent, bigger than the sum of its parts composition. So I think it still holds up, sounds fresh, and I love the visual in the movie Help.
Oh, okay.
The skis.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I hadn't thought about it until we were talking about it. I love the visual of John singing, "You've Got to Hide Your Love Away" from Help.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting that it triggers those visual images as well.
Yeah. Just like Can't Buy Me Love, I cannot separate from them running around the field.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha. I couldn't agree with you more. Going through this process that you and I are doing, just being reminded of Paul's harmony vocals, awesome. I mean, what he brings to this song is terrific.
Yeah.
And again, speaking of visuals, probably my favorite video visual of the Beatles, I'd have to give this more thought, is John and Paul singing this together at the microphone at Shea Stadium.
Very good. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That might be my penultimate just video clip of the Beatles.
What would be the ultimate?
I'm sorry, that would be the ultimate.
Okay.
Nothing was leaping to mind that outdoes that.
You're reserving that space for something. There's got to be something else out there. But and it's funny you said that, because I do think of the skiing scene in Help when I picture the song. But when I was a kid, and you grew up in Chicago, no, you grew up in Michigan, right?
Detroit, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So back then, they used to, after the sort of Merv Griffins and Mike Douglas shows, there would be an afternoon movie that came out. And I remember when they were promoting the showing of Help, because that was how I first caught it. It was on TV with commercials in the afternoon. I do remember there was a promo because they were doing Rock and Roll Week or something like that and showing an Elvis movie and stuff like that. But they're showing Help. But instead of showing a clip from Help, they did show them singing Ticket to Ride from Shea Stadium. That exact part where Paul's doing the rubberneck thing and they're on the mic. That's what I envision. And that's another thing that has stuck with me after all these years for Ticket to Ride and Help.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, you triggered that.
One of the things in sort of going through this process, I've never really paid close attention to Paul's bass playing in this song. It's terrific. It really kind of holds it together because there's different parts in this song and his bass really holds it together.
Again, as I'd said about the Hollywood Bowl, a lot of the musical construction of that song, I'd focused on one thing hearing the record, but then hearing the live version, other elements surfaced, and that includes the bass that I hadn't picked up on as fully before.
Yeah. And it is true that it was Paul that devised the unusual Ringo drum pattern.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember this when Keith Moon died in 1978. They had, in Rolling Stone, reviewed Who Are You, which, he died on the heels of that. I'm trying to remember if the review was written before he died or after. But I remember in their memorializing Keith.
Yeah.
And it's one of these things that when you're young and uncritical, you go along with it and accept it without thinking too hard. And nowadays, it just pisses me off when rock journos will praise one thing while simultaneously tearing down something else. It's like for something to be good, something else has to be less. And so I remember this quote, and I couldn't tell you what writer wrote it, but they're talking about Keith Moon as a rock and roll drummer. So naturally, they had to measure him against Ringo. And they said something to the effect, they put in quotes, Ringo's, quote, breakthrough on Ticket to Ride would for Keith be a breakdown.
Wow, that's so harsh.
Yes. It's like Keith can't be great without Ringo being terrible.
And I would posit, you're a drummer, could Keith Moon even play this Ringo part?
It wouldn't sound the same.
I can't imagine him being able to be something that simple and stripped down.
That controlled, yeah. I mean, right off the top of my head, I think he developed a capability over time. He was not a huge hi-hat player, but he did eventually, like Who Are You? A lot of that's hi-hat, different things later in the career. But as far as focusing on the snare and the kick, joined together comes to mind. But you could tell he's sort of chomping at the bit to do his thing. And the song is so structured and metronomic. And he, of course, did not have the sense of time that Ringo did. Ringo, you could set a watch to. Keith Moon, less so. But it worked because you had the three instrumentalists that were more or less soloing at the same time for a lot of their music. So that's why he's successful in that band in a way he wouldn't have been successful in another setting.
Yeah.
And ditto Ringo.
Right. Because you are a drummer, what do you think of that drum pattern? Do you think it's distracting from the song? Do you think it adds to the song? And I'm also interested in, is that difficult to play?
It's not terribly difficult to play. I would say that it was probably conceived. We know supposedly Paul's the one that told Ringo what to play, but you'll notice the pattern changes as the song goes on. From first verse to second verse to last verse, the fills in between. It's all different. It doesn't tend to repeat. So it's indicative of his thinking and the way the Beatles tended to think, which is not be obvious. Let's change things up every time it comes around so the listener will be expecting one thing. To give another example, it just popped in my head, Glass Onion. You know, the boom, boom between verses. And then at the end, he does a he changes it up. So that's the kind of thing that I think the Beatles were known for and did an awful lot of. They might echo something but twist it a little bit so it wasn't exactly the same predictable thing you see coming from the first verse on. So that's one of the cool things about Ticket to Ride. If you're a drummer in a Beatle band trying to copy it, you better make sure you're doing it right and don't just be lazy and play the same thing all the way through, or you're just an idiot.
So it's not terribly difficult to play.
No.
From a drummer standpoint. Okay.
No, I mean, there's a role in there. It's not hard for me to play. And I know that there are things that Ringo did, and it's been traced down to, well, he was a natural left-handed playing in a right-handed setup. Therefore, he would move with this hand first before the other one, and any right-handed person, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a lot of that on that particular song, but maybe there's another drummer that's like, damn, how can you do that? I know my hard thing to do that he does a lot, and he does it on another song famously on this album, is the simultaneous snare and floor tom, left and right hand, in perfect sync. A real example would be Tell Me Why. You really can't stand, I'm so in love with you. And that break that follows, that comes before the last verse, he does it in Help. He does it in And I Will Die on This Hill. It's Ringo playing drums on Old Brown Shoe. I don't care what anybody else says. I don't care what the studio logs say. I know what my ears say. It's Ringo.
Okay.
Full stop. And he does it there. That's a trademark Ringo move. And I have a hell of a time keeping left and right hands in sync to do that. They fall out of sync and it's just a mess. So other drummers say, you can't do that. That's easy. Well, that's how I'm wired. Sorry.
One other note about Ticket to Ride, and I think I've read Paul talking about that little bit at the end when they go to the falsetto and She Don't Care.
My Baby Don't Care.
Yeah. Paul says that that's a brand new song. I'm kind of quoting him, I think, that it's a brand new song. And it's the first time in the history of pop music, now I'm probably mangling his quote, that a new song is added to a song that already exists. I don't know whether that's true or not. I think it's the first time the Beatles have done it anyway. And I think it's interesting that Paul puts such a spotlight on that moment as a brand new song being created.
So does he mean sort of like a spontaneous, this has nothing to do with the whole rest of the song that we tagged on to the end? Okay. I'm sure just like John was forever crowing about feedback on I Feel Fine, for them it was a little breakthrough that they were very proud of. They did it again on Hello Goodbye.
Sure.
which was in the charts simultaneously with Incense and Peppermints, which does a similar thing. The sha-la-la at the end has nothing to do with the rest of the song. So it was a thing.
I've never thought of simultaneously Incense and Peppermints and Hello Goodbye. Oh, my.
Oh, yeah, duking it out for number one in America at the end of 1967, along with Daydream Believer. Why do I know this shit, Gary? I don't know.
Wait, I have to share a Daydream Believer story.
Okay.
So you know who wrote it. It's Jon Stewart.
Yes, before The Daily Show.
Yeah, Jon Stewart. Right. I just got it. Who was from a member of the Kingston Trio and has a long solo career. And he wrote that particular song. And I saw him live and he told the anecdote about, number one, that the story has bought him his swimming pool.
Right.
And number two, there's that line in it.
Funky.
Yeah. So you know the anecdote.
Uh-huh.
So tell it. Go ahead and tell us.
Just that he wrote it, and the original line in the second verse was, "Now you know how funky I can be."
Right. And it's turned into, "Now you know how happy I can." And he meant funky in a sexual way.
Uh-huh.
That's the way he explained it when I saw him live, that he meant it in sort of a, being funky, creative, interesting, doing strange things sexually. Management heard that and are like, no, we can't go down there. And hence we get, how happy I can be, which doesn't really make any sense in the lyrical flow of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought that was...
So they turn away the royalty checks?
Absolutely not.
Well, Anne Murray stuck with it, didn't she?
Did she?
Yeah, she sang happy.
Did she? Oh, well, right, the amended version.
Yeah. And she copped the Peter Tork piano lick. Dun, 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 dun. That opens the song.
All right, you're getting to a place that I don't know.
Okay.
Dan Murray.
You know what bothers me? Okay, he's the songwriter, and he's flexible enough to accept the royalties that the song made, but still make it his little stage patter for years after, as if there's a tinge of resentment there. I can see that as an artist, you getting a little, damn it, that he totally warped the meaning of that. And there's any number of other instances where there's stories of people whose songs are covered and the person covering it tweaks it. I know Leo Sayer wrote The Show Must Go On, and then Three Dog Night covered it, and they tweaked the word in there that pissed him off royally, and they had the bigger hit, so whatever. What's always bothered me, and maybe this is just me, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas.
Yeah.
We know the context of the song from Meet Me in St. Louis. They're upset and devastated because they're supposed to move to New York, and they're not happy about it. And so the song is a lament sung by Judy Garland. It's like, through the year we'll always be together. The line was something like, I'm not remembering, but we have to muddle through somehow. That's the original line.
Yeah.
And it was Sinatra that's like, I love this song, but that line's got to go. And so he prevailed upon, I think Sammy Kahn was who wrote it. And then they changed it to hang a shining star from the highest bough, or whatever. That to me is a terrible line. It has nothing to do with the whole rest of the song. And it's like, it jolts me every time I hear that at Christmas when everybody and their brother is singing that song. And they sing that stupid line that has nothing to do with anything. And it's just like, come on. I know there's some purists out there that stick with the original one. I think Chrissy Hine might be one. I can't remember. But I appreciate that when they do the song as written.
Yeah.
End of rant.
I like that line, muddle through somehow.
Yes.
It's an unusual word. It's tucked into that song, but it works for me. I like it that way.
And it fits the whole spirit of the downbeat sort of.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people who are depressed at Christmas, for any number of reasons. So it's being real, man.
Yeah. Let's see here. Okay. So
Silver.
Any other comments you want to add?
No, I think we've covered that one.
Okay. So Ticket to Ride is my silver.
Okay.
So I've got nothing to add that we haven't talked about already.
All right. Is it open the door to my silver?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. You're going to lose that girl.
Okay.
That is like, to me, another one of these things that Beatle albums were just so full of is these album tracks that could have been hit singles unto themselves. And that one nearly was, at least nearly a B-side in 77 when they put out Love Songs. And Girl was going to be the A-side. But we've talked in the show before about there's an out-of-tune piano on that. But it's so joyous. It's so upbeat and pop and just laden with harmonies and a great George solo and a fully invested John vocal about something that, if you think about it, really he's talking about stealing someone else's girl away because they're not treating her right. There's a bit of a false ring there. But in any event, they pull it off. And I love the visual in the studio, the dim, smoke-filled studio.
Yes, right.
Yeah, right before Ringo falls through the floor. But it's just a great, great track. And, I don't know what else there's to say about it, but any other artist of the day would have killed to cover that and have a hit with it.
I have more to say about it because it's my gold.
Okay. Go for it.
I love this song. The vocal interplay between lead and background singers is just fabulous throughout, which I think you've already...
Beatles being Beatles. That was a big year for the call and response that they did.
Absolutely. And here's a chance for John to show off his falsetto on Lose.
Yes.
Sings that, which generally it's Paul that's showing that off. So that's nice to hear.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I find interesting about the song and distracting about the song are the bongos.
Really?
Or the congas. I don't really know.
No, it's bongos. They show him playing them in the video.
Okay. So to me, it sounds like he's playing a different song. It sounds like the bongos are playing like double time.
Mm-hmm.
To me, they don't sound in sync with the beat. They sound like Ringo's playing to another song. But I find it compelling and interesting. And they don't use bongos very frequently on their music.
It's a callback to A Hard Day's Night.
Yes, true. Absolutely. But Hard Day's Night, it feels like it's in rhythm, where this feels out of rhythm.
Tacked on.
It's just kind of a flavor that's interesting. It's sort of under the surface. And it's one of the things that makes a song like this still appealing 55, 60 years later, that you can sort of tune into that bongo thing, which is
Bongo Fury.
A nice flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Someone made the observation about this song that this is the answer song to the guy who doesn't take the Beatles' advice in She Loves You.
Oh, look at that.
Right? And this is the answer song. You're going to lose that girl if you don't take my advice knowing that she loves you, sort of thing. And I thought, ooh, that's a pretty good 1-2 punch.
Yeah. You'll be the lonely one.
There you go.
You're not the only one. And Paul wagging his finger in the video. Like underscoring, I'm teaching you a lesson here.
Are you referring to the video from Help?
Yes.
Okay. I don't remember that. I haven't looked at Help in ages, so I don't remember that. And to your point, I think where you started, that the song is so underrated. Well, the author underrates it. John, says,
oh, yes,
throwaway piece of junk. But to your point, it's just a great pop song.
Yeah. And just showing that at this stage in the game, they're all potheads at this point. They're a bit weary. They would have to be from the nonstop activity from 63 on. But seemingly on demand, they can crank out what could have been a hit single for any number of other acts. Just here it is, another track for the album. It's that mastery of the pop idiom. It speaks a ton for their talents at that time.
Yes, and their incredible quality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I think that takes us to your gold, right?
Mm-hmm. Title track.
Okay.
So much going on there in terms of performance. I don't know what the time is on it. Maybe 2 minutes, maybe. It just seems like it goes by really quick, and yet it's got a repeat of a verse. It kicks open the door immediately and then ends on that exhale, that sigh. Help me, It has a franticness about it that captures, I think, thematically what they're going for in the film.
Mm-hmm.
The same way A Hard Day's Night captured that moment. The added layer of, as John would say many, many times after, that was me personally, Fat Elvis crying out for help. So you've got that personal investment in it that, again, it didn't matter what he was singing. The sequel or response song to She Loves You, he's still emotionally invested in what he's delivering there. And Help, absolutely in spades. I think it's too bad, and I talked about this in the show, I think, with Glenn Greenberg, where we were imagining our post-1970 Beatle albums. Had he gotten around to doing a slow piano Revolution 1 take on Help, how amazing that would have been, where you can really having in that Plastic Ono Band voice singing what he really thought the song was about. Instead, you have that comic version they do in Get Back, which is fun, but I think it's absolutely a monumental achievement as a single that was sort of overlooked because it also works entirely well as a beautiful pop song to compete in the charts alongside Herman's Hermits and Sonny and Cher.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of that. Absolutely. And to John's credit again, right? He comes up with the perfect theme song for A Hard Day's Night, and he comes up with a perfect theme song here, and sort of to your point, with an extra layer of emotional investment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to speak to your earlier point on You're Gonna Lose That Girl, about the call and response, the harmonies, that counterpoint.
Yes.
Beautiful, stunning. And we'd already talked about Ringo's drum fills on that song, as well as George's descending guitar line on the Won't You Please Help Me part. Yeah. And everything is just gold.
It is terrific. And you mentioned the call and response sort of thing. I believe the counterpoint background vocal, I think Paul has said that was his idea.
Correct.
So, it's not a Paul song, but what a wonderful, exciting element he brings to the song.
What a great example of something authored by John, his own personal thing, that then you bring it to these guys who then lift it up further. Just the synergy these guys had as artists. And that is like a fine example of taking something that was good and making it great, or taking something that was great and just making it stellar.
Right.
Without that, it still would have been a great song, but now they're all invested in it. It's a total group performance from start to finish, top to bottom, and it just enhances everything. And that was why these guys, that's the secret sauce to the Beatles, is their capacity editors for each other's work, and whatever George Martin might have brought to this particular arrangement as well. It was funny because I knew the song Help long before I knew the single, which apparently came out in 1964. It was a later hit by Jerry and the Pacemakers. It's Gonna Be All Right.
Okay.
Do you know that song?
It's not coming to mind. The melody's not coming to me.
So most people know their early hits, Ferry Across the Mersey. That's stuff that, with all due respect to the late Jerry Marsden, I can't stand their earliest singles, the How Do You Do It, and I Like It.
You don't like Ferry Across the Mersey?
No, I love that. I don't like I Like It and How Do You Do It. That it's just, ugh. But Ferry Across the Mersey is beautiful. Love that song.
Yeah, gorgeous.
Yeah, for sure. But It's Gonna Be All Right. When I first heard it, which was years after, it was in the 80s sometime, there was a British rock documentary that came out, and that was where I first heard it. And it has a lot of the feel or vibe of Help, that chiming acoustic guitar chugging along and that sort of frantic pace to it. It's gonna be all right, all right, all right, gonna be all right. And I wondered if, because it came before Help, if that in any way influenced the sort of arrangement to that bass. When the Beatles did Help, yes, they added all those Beatleisms on top of it, the call and response, George's lead guitar, Ringo's drumming, but it still had sort of that frantic acoustic driving rhythm to it, not unlike the Pacemaker song. So that was just my own mental connection. I don't know if it has anything to do with it or not, but that's what makes it atypical of the Pacemakers, was because that wasn't really their sound. They were doing stuff like Ferry Across the Mersey, You'll Never Walk Alone, and the other sort of stuff that they had that became hits. This was different from that. It was like a new direction that their career sort of expired before they could fully explore it.
I see. Speaking of new direction, you may know the answer to this. I do see a similarity between the lyric of this and the lyric of Yesterday. The song starts, when I was younger, so much younger than today. And Yesterday is sort of that same emotion. Nostalgic, sort of this looking back with sadness kind of thing. And I don't know who wrote the lyric for a song first, because I do think they kind of echo each other a little bit in their sentiments. Do you know?
I don't know. I believe that Yesterday existed in 1964. That was where it's first conceived. However, that's the tune and not necessarily the lyrics.
The lyric.
Yeah. It's interesting, and I'm sure a psychologist would have a field day exploring this, that here are these young men who by this time, by end of 64, going to 65, have achieved every dream they ever had for themselves on an unimaginable scale worldwide. There is nothing they are wanting in terms of quantifiable success or adulation or validation. And for John, it plunges him into a depression that he starts feeling in 65. Paul's is loving it and grabbing it. And yet they're both sort of expressing in song, even if it's just a ditty, even if it's not meant to be personal, but nonetheless, there it is. This nostalgia implicit before they was what they was, what they became. So I wonder if that's a natural thing or if it's reflective of their unique situation, but it certainly reached full flower by end of 66 when they're both going back to Liverpool to then craft what becomes the first post-touring single. So it is interesting. And John was already tapping that nostalgia, I mean, always really, wasn't he? If you look at his body of songs, there's always sort of this undercurrent of yesterday things were this and now they're this.
And probably Strawberry Fields Forever is the prime example of that.
Yeah. Even on She Said, when I was a boy, everything was right. In My Life is a nostalgic thing. I'm trying to think back. There's got to be examples. I'm trying to think. There's a place, maybe that's just more about the immediate moment where he can disappear to when he's feeling stressed. But that definitely seems to be one of his things. And as we know, his childhood was far from idyllic.
Yes, exactly.
So he's fantasizing that's like his Willoughby. This place that probably never did exist, but in your mind, it's so captivating. And that's the place I want to be because I know everything's going to be right there. Unlike this world.
I'm not sure I've ever noticed a heavy reliance on nostalgia with John. I'd have to give that some thought.
I'd have to go through it song by song, but I'm aware of it being a thing. And I'm not saying it's every song, but there's certainly a pattern there.
Okay. Have we covered Help?
I think so. I think it stands up. And like I said, all I have to say further is that it would have been nice to hear a more unadorned version from him with that pure emotional vocal.
I wonder about that. So John, as I recall, he said it was recorded too fast.
To be commercial.
Okay. I was never quite sure. And I think that came out in Lennon Remembers.
Probably. And he said the same of Revolution, of course.
Yeah. When I read it at the time, I wasn't sure if he meant it was recorded too fast tempo-wise or recorded too fast rushed out in the studio. Well, he always loved to rush things out in the studio, so it must be about the tempo.
Yeah.
Tell me your thoughts. Do you think a slowed down piano Plastic Ono Band version of Help would be stronger than this?
Different. It's like, which Revolution you like better?
Yeah.
I like them both. Just from a commercial pop standpoint, you look at what Neil Sedaka did. What Breaking Up Is Hard to Do.
I love both versions of that song. Yeah.
See, I could safely live without the first version because I'm not a fan of that kind of music. But the comeback version I thought was terrific.
It comes so close to being sort of a lounge lizard.
Yes.
But I totally agree. I love that song, and I feel it's a great alternate interpretation.
Right. And it just shows you that what some years and perspective can do to a song. And I'm sure there's other songs out there that people have revisited their past and like, wow, I hear this totally different. I will point out, just as a quick plug, when I did the interview with Jessica Morgan a couple years ago, Mary Hopkins' daughter, Mary does not do interviews, doesn't sign autographs. She's like completely shut the door on that, but she does still make music. She was 18 when she cut Those Were the Days, a song that if you listen to the lyrics of it, it's about somebody that we started out young, we're full of plans, full of these great ambitions, all this stuff. And now she's at the end of the song, this lonely woman. Is that really me? We're older but no wiser because our dreams are still the same. So she recut at 70 or however old she would have been, maybe 60 something. Those Were the Days. Completely different spin on it. And it's like, holy cow, this is amazing. This is terrific. Singing it as the person at the end of the song.
I have to look that up. I've never heard it. That sounds really captivating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So I think you wanted to go to the English version. Oh, wait, where are we going? Oh, we're going to do the English version of Rubber Soul now?
Yeah, we'll do them both. We'll start with the UK one.
Okay, gotcha.
Again, this is a thing that's going to start fights with people listening to this, that there is only one version of Rubber Soul. It's the one that starts with the soul song, Drive My Car. And if you want to hit back, there's only one place in the world where Drive My Car sounds good before Norwegian Wood, and that's the Red Album.
Unlike you, that wasn't my introduction to Beatledom, so I can't comment about
That's good.
All right, so I'll go with bronze for the English version of Rubber Soul, Nowhere Man. I think it's the first Beatles song that's not a love relationship type of song, which is important milestone. Unlike other John songs in the future, he sings the song with some sympathy and some empathy. Isn't he all a bit like You and Me? So ultimately hopeful. A guitar solo that just glistens with that tone pedal at the end, which is beautiful.
That harmonic?
Yeah, I think it's so cool.
Yeah, and the treble turned to 11 on those strats.
I think it's such a cool sound throughout. And then once again, here's Paul, that great harmony at the end.
Yes.
Just a wonderful send-off for the song.
Well said. You hit all the high parts, including the a cappella opening.
I'm not sure I like that. Do you like that?
I do.
Of course I like it, but...
But for that, it'd be my gold.
Why would I even say that? Of course. I don't know. I'm just trying to get an argument going or something. I don't know.
Spoiling for a fight.
Yeah, exactly. We're in too much agreement. We got to shake this.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. And one of the things a minor side note, I appreciate the fact that it is a song of such quality that they couldn't resist including it in Yellow Submarine. But I hate that visual because we know what they look like when they cut Nowhere Man. And I never liked John with the mustache. So I hate seeing that visual accompanying the song. That's my hang up.
And that is the thing about visual videos.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes they enhance the song, like seeing them, John and Paul sing Ticket to Ride in Shea Stadium, and other times, like you're explaining in Yellow Submarine, it takes you the other direction.
Yeah, yuck. Yeah. Now, Nowhere Man was actually my silver.
Okay.
So everything you said, completely valid. Great, unique sound. The stacked vocals are great. It says what it has to say. It's unique in Beatle music, I think, in that they get the guitar solo out of the way pretty early on. It's further deeper into the song when they get to that part. Usually it's a couple verses, then the solo. Here it's one verse and then a solo. So that was an interesting arrangement idea they had.
Never thought about that.
Yeah.
Nice.
And such a great solo it is, for all the reasons you mentioned. It sounds great. They left it off the American album and issued it later as a single. The same thinking that gave us 8 Days a Week as a single when they siphoned it off Beatles for Sale. It just had that commercial sheen upon it. And again, to me, underscoring this incredible sweet spot John was in as a writer at the same time he's looking back at himself as fat and depressed.
Yes. Go figure.
Yeah.
Right?
Everyone's depression should be so productive.
But I do want to make an observation. I'm going to make it now, talking about John during this period.
Uh-huh.
So during this period, and it's including a couple albums still to come, according to my calculations, his love songs are really troubled. He's got 7 of them. You've got To Hide Your Love Away, Ticket to Ride, Girl, It's Only Love, Norwegian Wood, Day Tripper, and We Can Work It Out. All have pretty, dark, complaining kind of unhappiness to them, balanced only by You're Going to Lose That Girl, which is kind of sits off in left field, and In My Life. So you've got all these sort of troubled love songs, 7 of them, with just the only positive love song being In My Life.
Yeah. In My Life is an interesting one because to me, I love the song, always have. It's unique sounding. It's a great statement. It's a great ensemble vocal performance and everything else it's got going for it. The lyric to me, past the first verse, sounded a little contrived. When he gets to There's No One Compares With You, that didn't ring true to me for whatever reason. Still doesn't. It just sounded like he ran out of ideas. Now I'm just going to turn this into a straight love song. I thought he could have explored the nostalgia a little deeper about people that have come and gone from his life and places and all that stuff. And we know the story that he sat down trying very hard to write a song, and it just became this checklist of destinations in Liverpool before he gave up, and then it came to him.
Right.
But to me, that was something that it didn't ring true to me. And I know we're not talking about that song right now, but I get what you're saying is that, yes, that's the opposite of all these other dark, troubled relationship songs, which he clearly could pull off authentically. It didn't sound false. Now, where do you rate Run for Your Life in there?
Yeah, right.
That redhead stepchild.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
I always postulated that song belonged more in Beatles for Sale.
I would totally agree with you.
Just as a rockabilly, you don't think about the words. It's just we're having fun here.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, it's kind of a wart on all the other songs he did on Rubber Soul. It's just weird. An aberration.
Couldn't agree with you more. I think we're totally on the same page on that one. All right, so that's my bronze, Nowhere Man, and that's your silver?
Yes.
Okay, so what's your bronze?
My bronze is...
End of part 1. Intermission.
Something About the Beatles. Created and hosted by Robert Rodriguez. Executive producer Rick Way. Title song by The Corgis.